Hey guys, I'm sorry that I haven't posted in a little bit, but we have some really big decisions to make with this F550. So as you guys probably already know, in my last video, we tore everything out of this ambulance box. And now we just have parts in here from starting the disassembly of the F550. And the game plan for this video was supposed to be an in-depth plan for our build, but we've hit a snag. So let me show you real quick. You guys like my chair? This is the captain's seat out of the ambulance. We just screwed it down onto a dolly and it makes like a really nice chair to just roll around in. And yes, you can see that the 550 is already being disassembled. That's going to be our next video. We're about halfway through the disassembly right now, but like I said, next video. So I've actually already made a full build plan for this rig behind me. And we've already filmed the video for that twice. The first time it was 2 hours and 45 minutes after I cut everything out of it that didn't need to be there. And the second time it was 45 minutes, so we cut a lot down. But the reason why it's been taking so long to get into is because of the ambulance box and its structure, particularly the cab over. But there's one other really big thing that I need to figure out, and honestly, I need your help figuring it out. So yes, I'm going to be looking for comments on this video. So for this build, we had a couple of big requirements. We wanted something that me and my girlfriend Remy could live out of full time. We wanted to really not design it as a camper, but design it as a home. And that changes a lot of the decisions that you would make when you're building something out. We wanted it to be decently off-road capable. We're going to be running super singles on this rig, not the typical super singles that you'll be thinking of. We're not running MPT 81s, the Continental tire. I actually have a very interesting tire setup that I'm going to be showing you guys. We also wanted to have a very large electrical system in this build. We wanted to be able to run AC off of solar reliably, and then that requires a lot of solar and a big battery bank. And I've been wanting to do a 48 volt system for a long time, and that's what we're going to be doing in this rig, particularly because we're going full electric and no propane. I also needed it to be comfortable for 2 people and 2 dogs, and the ability to sleep 2 guests. And the one that's really interesting here is that we wanted a full workstation for 2 people. So that's 2 desktop setups, 2 keyboards, and 2 mice. And we actually figured out a way to incorporate that into this build. Now, I've had this layout and design cooked up in my head for a long time, and we finally started getting it into CAD, getting some very basic drawings down so we could make sure that all of our components will fit in. But this design requires a cab over. Now, my last video where me and Remy tore everything out of this ambulance box, I made it pretty clear that the reason why we're doing this so early on in the build process when we still have the truck to work on, I needed to get into this box, look at the structure, and find out if the cab over design is a feasible modification that we can make to this box. So after looking through this box here, you'll see that the columns, this is very typical 2x2 square aluminum tubing. It's 1/8 inch thick. But then we get over here to where we'd actually be making our cab over modifications. None of this is really a concern, but this right here is. So I don't know if you can tell here, but this corner piece is not very structural. It's really just a big round bend going all the way down, and then there's this piece that comes out. And you can see the way that it's welded into this corner piece. So there's not a lot of structure to really weld into here to do a nice cab over. Now I can obviously come in here and do a lot of modification to the box, add in reinforcements, and we could add a cab over to this design, but it's not something that I'm super confident in. I honestly just don't know if I can make it look as professional as I really want to make it look. Then we come to our back doors here, which is where there's even more modification required for our design. Now there'd be one seat over here, one seat over here, there'd be a table in the center, and then our monitors would actually go into the ceiling. There'd be a 4-inch drop down here, and we'd have them on hinges so they could actually come down like this and like this. And then you would be able to have, you know, 2 people sitting here and 2 monitors. But the only place that we can fit our water is right here. We'd actually raise the floor here about 10 to 12 inches to be able to fit 2 water tanks right here. Now that sounds great at all until you realize that the table is going to sit about here on the window, meaning that you're gonna have no window out the back. And with all the work that I do on a computer, I know that I'd be sitting here a lot, and I really want a window out the back. That's just something that I think would really make the rig feel like a home inside. It would make it feel more open. It's not something that I want to give up. So that made me look at deleting these doors and actually welding up a full wall here, which still doesn't solve our issue up here. Because now I probably have to delete this, bring it down, and then when we raise the roof, I might have enough room here to be able to have a window. And then that brings us into how am I actually going to raise the roof on this vehicle? There's 2 options. So the first option would be cutting here, going across the entire vehicle and basically lifting the cap. It gets a little bit more complex over here, but nothing bad. The downside with a straight up roof raise is these corners right here. I would need to match these corners to go straight up and still make it look professional. And I've called a lot of different companies that make aluminum extrusion like this, and I can't seem to find anything that matches. There's a couple of other options. One of them's really expensive and another one's very time consuming. The other option is to cut right along here on these bars, lift the entire thing up and then bring in another 2x2 piece, basically frame in a little bit inwards here. Then we'd actually have another piece of 2x2 that comes up and in a little bit to meet it. That would be a lot less work, a lot more feasible to do. It would most likely look a lot more professional. But then we run into issues with our roof space and being able to fit that 1500 to 2000 watts of solar. So as I've gone through the list of box modifications I have, which is more than what I just talked about, by the way, I've started to question at what point does it make sense to modify this existing structure versus building something from scratch. So that's where I started going down the rabbit hole and looking at different options. Now, I've always known about composite structures, let's say from a company like Total Composites. I looked on their website, I started looking into it a little bit. On the low end, one of their kits is 16 grand. They do custom stuff, but it goes up and up and up. And we're looking to build something on a budget. So that led me down the rabbit hole even further. And what I eventually found is a very interesting design style. It'd be using an aluminum exoskeleton as the majority of the structure, and then basically making your own composite boards. Now, there's a lot of research that needs to be done there to be able to make your own composite panels, but it is definitely feasible. And the one thing I'll say with that is that they are not going to be nearly as strong as something from Total Composites would be. And that's where the aluminum exoskeleton comes into play. So this would be a lot of time in research. This would be a lot of time in testing different materials. I'd want to do some heat testing, some cold testing. I'd want to do some load testing. All of this adds time to our build. Now, these composite panels would be a sandwich composite construction, just meaning that there's going to be a foam core in it, and then there can be aluminum on one side, there can be plywood on one side, it can be fiberglass. There's a lot of different materials. Composite just means that it's multiple materials put together, pretty much. These panels would be placed into the aluminum exoskeleton. They would be glued in, they would be riveted in, and then on the inside of that structure, they would again be reinforced. This is one of those structures where the more that you add to it, the stronger that it gets. Every part of the build, including the interior cabinet structures, add to the strength and rigidity of the entire structure. Now, there's a lot of benefits to this style of construction. The first one, and the biggest one for me, is freedom of design. I'm basically able to build the structure however I want in terms of the layout. It would also be much lighter than ambulance boxes. Ambulance boxes are not the lightest thing in the world. Ambulances also have a lot more thermal bridging going on because of that 2x2 square tubing. The heat or the cold will conduct its way right through that, and unless you add insulation over everything and a layer above that, you're gonna get that thermal bridging. Now, the other 2 benefits to this are particularly for me and what we're looking to do here at Expedition Ranch. The first one is that it's repeatable. Ambulance boxes are not super repeatable because every ambulance box you get is pretty much going to be a little different. There's different manufacturers, there's different layouts. And for me, because we're trying to build rigs on this channel, do the whole giveaway thing and all that, repeatability becomes a factor that I need to pay attention to. But this also gives the benefit that this general construction style, as I said, gives me freedom of design. Meaning we don't always have to do these big F550 trucks or 450s or stuff like that, these big kind of expedition rigs. We can do a smaller rig and try something a little bit different. That'll keep content interesting, that'll keep our giveaways interesting. It's something that I need to consider going forward. And obviously this is going to take a lot of time in the research and development phase. But even with that said, I want to build something that is still repeatable for you guys if you wanted to try to copy one of my designs. I'm not going to try to hold back secrets about how we're building something. A lot of this channel is for you guys to get some inspiration and do that dream build that you've always wanted. So as I've been going through all this research and planning and considering a lot of different things, I've come down to one major decision, and I need your help with it. But first, for you to get the full context, I need to explain a few things. For you to understand my decision making here, I need to explain my life before I started YouTube. And I don't talk about this much anymore because it's not the focus of the channel, but it's important to this decision. So I'd always wanted to do the van life thing since I was a young kid. I love the outdoors. I love the idea of being able to move around and have that type of freedom. But I've also always been into small business. So when I was 19, I came into the opportunity to buy a janitorial business that had already been running, do seller financing for it because the owners were looking to retire. I worked on that business for 4 years, and I was lucky enough that in the beginning I was able to get in with a couple of really big clients, and I was able to grow that business significantly. By 2022, I had hired a lady to be able to run a lot of our back-end operations, customer support, scheduling technicians, all that type of stuff. And then I hired 2 supervisors to do a lot of the training, inspections, and all that type of stuff out in the field. Then I hired a close friend who was good with sales to go ahead and basically be an account manager and salesman. He was supposed to have that relationship with the client. And when I brought him in, I offered him a significant amount of the equity that I was receiving. And in 2022, my role in that company had changed a lot. I wasn't going out and working with technicians or doing sales myself. My role became a lot of meetings to make sure that everyone had what they needed to be able to succeed in their role, and reviewing a lot of data just to constantly have my finger on the pulse of the business and know what was going on with it. And that's when I built my F350 ambulance. My goal was to be able to go out on a lot of trips, be able to travel like I'd always wanted to, but still be able to work remotely. My role had changed enough where that was now something that was feasible. And then it all came crashing down. My friend that I had hired, he had gone behind my back to the original owners and basically offered to buy the company directly from them. He was a smart guy and he was capable, and he was able to do basically the same seller financing arrangement that I had with the original owners, but at the current market value of the company, which was significantly higher. I'll never fully understand exactly why this happened, but I do have a couple of guesses. But that's all they are, is guesses. The owners have made some very poor financial decisions, and I think that this deal was a lifeboat for them in their retirement. And also trying to step into their shoes some. I think that, the owner had been doing this for 30 years. He'd been cleaning a lot of the accounts himself. He wasn't exactly a business-minded guy. He was just a very hard worker. And I think as I developed a team and started to grow it into something that could be a lifestyle business, I don't think that's something that a guy that had been running the business for the previous 30 years, who had been working his butt off, really wanted to see. And as for my friend, I just honestly should have known better. He had always prioritized money and status. I know that was a big thing for him. And I think at the end of the day, this was an opportunity that he was able to jump on. And ultimately, that financial opportunity, I think, was worth more to him than our friendship was. He had honestly done a lot of things in the 12 years of our friendship that I should have seen. I should have seen something like this coming. At the end of the day, it was a very hard lesson for me to learn, but people will always act in their own self-interest when the stakes or the opportunity is high enough. It's a shitty lesson to learn, but that's what I've taken away from it. But when this all happened in December of 2022, the only thing that I had left was my ambulance, and I had about $30,000 to my name. For that 4-year time frame, I'd pretty much been putting everything back into growing that business. I'd been taking a salary of like $2,000 that entire time. So that F350, that rig, that was my freedom, that was my security. It was really the only thing that I had left after all this happened. And I took that rig and I hit the open road. I had no idea what I was going to do. And I vowed that I was never going to go back there. And to be honest with you, I'm really glad that I left, because the amount of anger that I had was really scary. The other thing that I was feeling was, what am I going to do now? I'd pretty much had my entire life's work at that point just evaporate. So I ended up spending about a year on the road. I was living as cheaply as humanly possible. I was slowly making my way around, but I was moving camp maybe once every 2 weeks, living so cheaply. And I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And on top of that, that year was a lot of coming to terms with what had happened. It took me a long time to actually understand what had happened. But during that time, I had idle hands. I really didn't know what to do with myself. I wanted to work on something, but I didn't know what to put my energy into. And not having an income and seeing my savings slowly dwindle down was just a very nerve-wracking pressure that was always on me. And I almost started another cleaning company because that's what I knew how to do. I'd already gone through the learning curve. I knew that if I took everything that I had learned through my 4 years of growing that company, that I could just go ahead and start it over and probably do it a lot quicker to get up to where I was at if I just started another one. But while I was on the trail, I was also considering a lot of other things about life. This whole 1 year on the road thing was kind of this journey of self-realization and all that type of mumbo jumbo. And I was really thinking about what I wanted to do with my life. While this whole experience I had was a terrible thing, I now had a clean slate where I could start over. I could pretty much do anything I wanted, although I'd have to bootstrap it. So I spent a lot of time in the woods contemplating these two things. Life is short, as you guys know, and don't take offense to this, but I personally don't believe in God or an afterlife or anything like that. And honestly, that belief helped me out a lot because it made me realize that I only have one life. I only have one chance to do the things that I want to do with my life, and I don't want to waste it. And I think that is what gave me a lot of appetite for risk. And the second thing that I spent a lot of time contemplating was this trifecta for a career in particular. You know, if I could spend the rest of my life doing something that I was passionate about, that I enjoyed doing, that I was naturally talented at, and third, brought value to the world, and then I just needed to figure out what exactly was that. So trust me, I'm explaining all of this because it makes a point in the decision that we need to make for these builds. Trust me, it matters, but I want to explain this to you guys because this really matters. So I continued on the road for a few months trying to figure out what that perfect trifecta was for me. And then while I was getting close to Moab, I heard about the 317 miles of trail and dispersed campsites that were getting shut down out in Moab. Seeing that happen was something that was really upsetting for me because I had spent a lot of time, traveling our public lands and there's a lot of things that go on our public lands. There's trash, there's people that go off trail, there's people who don't respect our public lands. And then come shutdowns and other things that, come along with some of that abuse of our public lands. And there's a very fine balance of conservation and access to our public lands. But either way, seeing this was something that was really upsetting to me. Seeing 317 miles of trails get shut down, likely to never be reopened. Seeing campsites that no one will likely ever camp out again. And this is when I had a really big aha moment. I had been seeing companies running giveaways on vehicles for a while. And as someone who's interested in business, I kind of looked into the model. I tried to figure out, what they were doing. Because to me, it seemed like something that, it wasn't believable. It seemed like a scam. But I saw that there was a lot of reputable companies who had been doing this for a long time. And after researching the model, it made sense to me. So I'd already been doing a little bit of YouTube at this point. A lot of my videos were about the travels, but also about some of the stuff that I was going through. I think that was my way to slowly work my way through everything that I had been experiencing. talking to the camera and talking through these things I was thinking about was almost like therapy for me, and that was almost the direction I was going to take the channel. But then I had this idea. What if I build these really unique campers, film it over on YouTube, film the whole process, not keep anything a secret? But this would have a big twist. I'd want to build these rigs and then give anyone the opportunity to win one of them. And through doing this, I had an opportunity to make an impact for some of these things that I cared about with our public lands. And the way that I incorporated that into this business model was to donate 10% of our bottom line to two very cool nonprofits that do a lot of trail stewardship and cleanups and education, and then also fight the legal battle on helping to keep our public lands open and available for all of us to enjoy. Now, I did make that 10% of our bottom line, so if I lose money doing it, I was still protected, because this whole idea that I was thinking about was a huge risk. I mean, I was talking about giving away my home, my vehicle, when I didn't have an income. That was my security. But because I'm stubborn, I looked into the industry a lot. I spent several months researching and learning, and I eventually came up with a game plan to give away the F350. We could hopefully actually make money on this by opening up an online store, selling apparel, selling gear, and then it'd be one entry to win the camper for every $1 spent on the website. Basically, think about it this way. All it is just a normal online store, but the giveaway is just a promotion for it. But like I said, this was a huge risk because this rig was my home. It was my security. It was the thing that I could always fall back on. And I went back to that idea of that I only have this one life to live. I don't get a do-over. And I loved this idea so much that I think that it gave me a large appetite for risk. So I committed to the idea. I only had $10,000 at the time to live on, but I'd also been living for the past year at about $600 a month of expenses. I'd learned how to be super, super cheap and play a lot of financial defense. And I knew that our first giveaway was going to be the toughest. It was going to be a make or break. People don't know you, you haven't run a giveaway before, so there's not a lot of trust, and trust on the internet is already super low. I didn't have a huge email list of previous customers who had already purchased from us. And the only benefit that I had was a small social media following that I had built up over the year of being on the road. So in April of this year, we launched the giveaway, and my small following got us to the first $20,000 of sales. And mind you, that's before we had to pay for the actual apparel and gear and all that. So that got us about a fifth of the way to paying off just the materials for the build, not the labor. And the sales very quickly dried up from my small social media following. And by the way, when I say small, we're talking at the time like 90,000 people on Facebook, 55 something on Instagram. TikTok really doesn't matter. And I think I only had 20,000 subscribers over on YouTube. So I had to get into the world of learning how to run paid ads myself. I had to learn how to do marketing, something I'd never done before. And paid media has been a huge learning curve I still haven't figured out. There's days where we make good money, and there are days where we lose money. Like today, I've probably lost like $300. I mean, I'd never done a product business. I'd never done e-commerce. I'd never done advertising. All I really knew how to do was labor-based service businesses, and at that point I'd learned how to make content to a degree. We chose to run our giveaway from April through Christmas because at least that gave me some opportunity to learn and make mistakes, and it gave me some type of safety net so I didn't lose a ton, hopefully. And I'm really glad that we did that because it is August 13th right now as I'm filming this, and we are right there on the cusp of breaking even with just the materials for our rig and the bonus prizes that we've added in. I want to quickly thank my girlfriend Remy, who I met on the road last year. She's been with me through every step of the way through this process. She designed these shirts. She handles the customer service. She deals with fulfillment. She does a lot of stuff on the back end so I can work on some of these other things. And without her, this whole thing wouldn't have been possible. I would have burnt out a long time ago and probably dropped the ball on some things. The things that she has given up to come and do this with me is incredible. Together, we've done thousands of hours of work on this project, and we still haven't made profit, although we're right there at the cusp. But I'm committed to this idea, and she's committed to this idea, and I know that it's going to take probably 3 giveaways before we have some type of, livable income. And then we can stop eating chicken and rice for every meal and not have to pinch every penny and not go out and do fun things and all that. And I look forward to that day because she really deserves that. And this property, this shop that I'm in, the bungalow that we're actually living in right now, it's free. One of my YouTube subscribers, his name's Brian, he reached out to me and he offered to let us stay here for a minimum of 2 years. He really believes in what we're doing and he's been super gracious to let us do this because, again, without him, this also wouldn't be possible. So everything that I told you here is important for the decision. So let me tell you about this decision that I need help making. I want to build this F550 for me and Remy, because with all the pressure and uncertainty that we have with pursuing this idea, I want to have a home. I want to have some type of security that I know that I can always fall back on. I know that even if something goes wrong, if I have a rig, I have that home, I have that security, I can go anywhere, I can get a job working construction, and I know that I'd be just fine. But this isn't the best option for the future of the channel. If I build this rig, I will not have enough money left over to build a second giveaway rig. So option number one, I build this F550, I do the exoskeleton design, I go ahead and make it what I want to make it for a home. But to build this rig, I'm definitely going to eat through a significant chunk of the money that we've made through the giveaway. But we still have several months remaining in the giveaway, and if things go well, then we might have just enough to be able to build 2 rigs. So if I go this option, I'm most likely going to need to secure funding for a second build. Either get investment or a loan or do something along those lines to make the company continue forward. I don't think this would be extremely difficult because I have gotten to the break-even point. A lot of these giveaway companies, they never make it past their first giveaway. So we are getting promising results for our first one. The benefit with this option is that I have my security. The downside is that I would need to secure funding, and I definitely am not going to offer equity or anything like that based off my previous experience working with other people as far as equity partners. So I'd have to figure that out. The second option, I've already started the teardown of the F550. So what we would do is I would go ahead and build the base for the camper, but not the entire thing. So we'd go ahead and do our restoration to the truck. We'd do our suspension, our tires and wheels. We'd do our interior modifications. We'd basically do everything that we need to do to this truck to put a camper on the back, but leave it at that. We'd pull this rig out of the garage and basically put it on hold till 2025. This also comes with the benefit of it will give me more time to study this aluminum exoskeleton and composite design, do materials testing, a lot of that stuff. Then we'd still have enough money left over to be able to build our second giveaway rig. For our second giveaway rig, I think that I would use the F450 and the ambulance box that we already have. So let's take a look at it real quick and I'll show you what we're thinking about for the build on that one. Oh man, it's already getting dark out. So we wouldn't do the cab over design just because of my concerns with doing this cab over. What we would do, however, is we would raise the roof. That's going to be a lot easier, and we'll do that kind of angled in design. Now we would still have to take the ambulance box off because we would be doing a mild restoration to this truck too. This truck definitely has some surface rust on the frame. I mean, it's pretty typical stuff. It's nothing that's eaten into it, but you can see that it definitely needs to be cleaned up and painted. We do some very basic engine work to this truck just to make sure it's 100% reliable. This engine is in really great shape. It has like 0 blow-by. There's no blow-by on this motor. In the back here, it does have a newer turbo. It has up pipes done to it. The injectors were done before I bought it. I know the power steering system was replaced in the last 20,000 miles, but I'd still want to go through the motor and just make sure that it's completely reliable for whoever wins it. Now there's also some rust on the underside here, but it is pretty minimal. It's definitely stuff that we can get cleaned up, sealed, and painted. There is a rear main seal leak, so we will have to pull the transmission, but that'll also give us the opportunity to get way up in here and get the cab completely cleaned up. For suspension, tires, and wheels, we just do a 2.5-inch leveling kit on this thing. That's actually what our plan was for the 550. And you can see here we do need to replace this fender because that's like the only dent on this thing. But we'd replace all the shocks, we'd do a new steering stabilizer, all that. And we would replace these tires with 35-inch tires. There's a certain tire that'll work really well in these 19.5 rims, but we would keep the stock rims and keep this as a dually. And then for the inside here, so we'd probably be running a design where the bed is in the back, have a large garage space. We'd be able to do 40 gallons of water back there pretty easily. I'm not quite sure how I want to use the rest of this space because this is something that we've just started considering in the last few days, so I haven't even done any design work in here. So as far as the interior goes, we would be designing it around full-time living still. So we'd be doing XPS foam board. I've run the XPS foam board in my other ambulance and we've been down to -14. That's been completely fine. We'd have a full kitchen, so we'd be doing a sink. We'd most likely do an induction cooktop. I don't think we'll be running any type of oven or propane in this unit. We would still do a shower on this one, so we would knock this pan in right here and have the shower right as you walk in, so there'd be a shower head in the ceiling, so we'd have a rainfall style shower. This design is something that would allow you to have a shower curtain come around so you can shower when you need to shower inside, but it won't take up space because, you know, in a rig that's only, this thing's only 12 feet long right here. So we really don't want to use space for a shower. For the electrical system, I'm already going to need to buy some large residential panels for the F550 build. I can only buy those 10 at a time. So I think I'll go ahead and place my order. They're 540 watt panels. So we'd either do one panel up on the roof or potentially two panels. If we did one panel, we'd do 300 amp hours of lithium. If we did two panels, we'd probably do 500 to 600 amp hours of lithium. Now I debated back and forth if I should go ahead and add in an electrical system that large for a giveaway rig, but we are gonna have a 12 volt AC unit up on the roof here. And because of that, I'd want an electrical system that could at least run the AC for a decent amount of time. You know, it's not something where you're always going to be able to run the AC 24/7 like 2000 watts of solar could do, but it is something where it's like, hey, you have a 12 volt, you know, AC unit, but you know, you can't use it unless you have a ton of power going. I see van companies do that all the time where they stick a 12 volt rooftop AC on it and they only have like 200 or 300 amp hours of lithium and no DC to DC charging, no shore power. Like, what good is that 12 volt AC unit if you can't power it? On the interior here, it's probably a mess in here. Yes, it is a mess. So we do need to rip out the floor. You know, this side actually isn't too bad. This is all just dirt right in here, but I know that okay, well, the other side has a little bit of rust. Nothing cancerous, but something I want to take care of. We'd be removing these bench seats and just doing 2 standard seats because I think I'm still going to run a pass-through on this rig. Now, something I want your opinion on here is that we do have some leads for changing out all the plastics in here. That would include coming in here to the dash and replacing these plastics. I just don't know how much people would really like blue, you know? I don't know on that one. And with a giveaway rig, we want it to be something that's widely appealing. And ignore the plastics that are off the steering column and down here. We were doing a little bit of work in here. But the other question I have for you guys is this right here. So I know that a lot of you guys know these trucks and you know that the ZF6 manual is just superior to the 4R100. But again, it kind of comes down to what would work well for a giveaway rig. So, you know, 6-speed manual here. This thing shifts really nice. You know, it has the standard 4-wheel drive on the bottom. So this is where I want you guys to put something in the comments. What would you guys like to see for the next giveaway rig? Do you want the manual transmission? I mean, the manual transmission is superior to the 4R100 transmission in their stock forms. You know, the ZF6 can handle a lot more power. The ZF6 will, in my experience, get 3 to 5 miles per gallon better than the 4R100 trucks. You know, this truck right here, when I had everything in it when I was moving, weighed nearly 15,000 pounds and I still got 16 miles to the gallon. They're cheaper to rebuild and they'll last 2 to 3 times longer than the 4R100. You know, these 7.3 diesels will go 400, 500,000 miles. And usually with the automatics, you're going to go through 2, maybe 3 transmissions in the life of the truck. Some of you in the comments I know are going to say more. The other option is that we go ahead and sell this truck and we look to find another 450 or 550 with an auto and low miles. So what do you guys think? Do we build this F550, do the full camper conversion, and then I have my security at the cost of most likely having to get investment for the next build? Or do we just build out this truck and hold off on the camper part and build this truck right here into our next giveaway rig? I feel like the first option is an emotional decision, all about, personal safety and security, which has value, by the way. Or do we go with the second option, which would be building this rig as our next giveaway rig? I feel like this choice is the better business decision at the cost of me not really feeling security. Your opinions matter a lot on this, so please put them in the comments. I want to read through the comments. I'll do my best to answer all those comments, but as you could probably tell, we have a lot going on around here, not just with truck builds. And if you guys want to support the channel and be a part of the giveaway of this rig right here, then all you need to do is just head over to expeditionranch.com. Anything that you grab on our store will get you entered to win this rig. It's a 7.3, it's got 124,000 miles on it. It has a transmission that only has 3,000 miles on it. It's been fully converted on the inside. I mean, this rig pretty much saved my life. And, I hope whoever wins it, that it can have that type of impact on their lives. The second option to support the channel is Patreon. I do videos over there that's a little bit more like a journal. I share the wins, I share the losses. I also do a once a month video call with all of my Patreon members over there. So if you want to get on a call with me with a bunch of other guys that are helping to support, you can do that over there. Or if financially contributing isn't your thing, honestly, just a like, a subscribe, commenting on the video, doing things that tells YouTube that, these are worthwhile, interesting videos. It helps grow the channel. And that means a lot too. So don't underestimate that. Anyways, guys, in our next video, which I'm already halfway done filming, by the way, we're going to finish up the disassembly of this truck to do our engine mods, to do our restoration, to do a lot of the stuff that we need to do to this to make it a camper. Anyways, guys, I'll catch y'all soon.